Welcome to the 36th chapter of the book of Isaiah. It begins, and it came to pass the 14th year of the reigning, vasalevontos, that's a verb, the reigning, a participle, of Hezekiah, Sennacherib vasalefs, and that's a noun, king, Sennacherib, king of the Assyrians, Assyrion, ascended epi tas polis tis Eutheas tas okiras, upon the fortified cities of Judea. The king Sennacherib, he was the son of Sargon the Great. His father was a man who did most of the seizures, the captures, and made Assyria great. And Sargon was eventually killed by his own troops, but his son here, Sennacherib, took over a kingdom that was all set up, that was powerful throughout the world. And we can go down here and we'll see a map of Assyria, and it was right here. And he was from Nineveh. That was the capital of Assyria. In 689, a little bit before this period where we're reading, he went down to Babylon and destroyed the city. And then the Chaldeans from down this place here came up, rebuilt it, and then came down again and destroyed it. And then the third time the Babylonians came up and defeated the Assyrians, and then became the Babylonian Empire. But this king Sennacherib, he found out that these kingdoms down here in Phoenicia and places, Lebanon is up in here, were revolting against the Assyrian kingdom, the power. And so he came down with his army to defeat these different little city-states that were revolting from Assyria. And we'll see and we'll read what did happen here in this verse when we go by to it. Now, this chapter 36 is almost the same as in 2 King chapter 18. They basically tell the same story, a little bit, few facts in one that the other doesn't have. And then 2 Chronicles 32, where we left off when we went into the book of Isaiah, tells us same story here. So we have three places in the Bible that basically tell the same story: 2 Kings 18, 2 Chronicles 32, and here in Isaiah. In 2 Kings 18, we're told that right before here, Hezekiah tries to buy off Sennacherib when Hezekiah is fighting with the northern kingdom, and Sennacherib just comes down and takes Damascus. Doesn't really help Hezekiah. So now it mentions that Hezekiah. Let's go back to our text and we'll find out what it mentions. Sennacherib, the king of the Assyrians, ascended upon the fortified cities of Judea. That's where basically Jerusalem was located. And he took them, not Jerusalem, but these other cities. And the king of the Assyrians, Sennacherib, sent Rabshakeh, from out of Lachish unto Jerusalem to King Hezekiah with a great force. So now we'll go back to our map, and we will go to Judah, and here's Jerusalem, and Lachish is down here. He took these other cities over here in Philistia, and so now he sent Rabshakeh over to Jerusalem to get them to surrender with a great force. And he stood by the aqueduct of the upper pool in the way of the field of the fuller. So we'll go to another map of Jerusalem here. Now here's Jerusalem, Now, where exactly? Some people thought it was over here, the gate where he was yelling, and other people thought it was over here by the main part. And so you can read different hours, but here's the pool towers. So there was pools were up here. But anyway, this is what Jerusalem is, a illustration. And so this man is standing out fairly close to the wall, yelling up to Hezekiah's rulers. And it says, and there came forth to him Eliakim, to Helkiu, economos, economy and manager, and Somnas, grammatefs, scribe. Grammar comes from that. And Yoach, to Asaph, epomenimatografos. Well, that's a good one. That's a long word. A recorder. So these were the three main people that Hezekiah sent out to listen to this Rabshakeh. And Rabshakeh said to them, well, speak to Hezekiah. Indeed, speak to Hezekiah with a they in there. I should have put, indeed, speak to Hezekiah. Thus says the Vasilevs, Megas, the great king, Vasilevs Assyrion. What are you relying upon? And we went through that before, other chapters of what are we relying upon. So he is asking, what are you relying upon to the Jews? And again, everybody sort of relies on something, and we went through that earlier, what we rely on in politics, government, wealth, so forth. So he's thinking, well, these people, what are they relying on? If he can destroy their relying on whatever they were relying upon and make it look bad, then he will have gained something psychological. This is what Rabshakeh was probably thinking. This is why he's asking this. He didn't say, why don't you surrender right away? And then it continues, does the battle take place by a plan with the words of the lips? So he's basically putting Hezekiah down for what he's doing here, and more or less saying, well, Hezekiah is just talking a lot, telling you things, but that's not going to save you just because he talks. And now, upon whom are you relying? Again, sort of like what Satan was doing with Eve. And did God really say this? That you resist my persuasion. And we see this resisting of persuasion in other places, the Jews resisting the persuasion of Jesus. And Paul mentioning the resisting persuasion to the fact of the Christ's resurrection and death and resurrection. Rabshakeh says, behold, you are relying upon this fractured rod of reed upon Egypt, which is to the west of Israel. He said, this is what you're relying upon, a fractured rod. Now these reeds, if they did fracture, they had tremendous splinters that would go up, sharp points, and you wouldn't want to be leaning on one when it broke. Which if a man should stay his weight upon it, it shall enter into his hand and puncture it. Thus is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the ones relying upon him. So basically now he's putting down Egypt as not anybody to rely upon. And if this is what they're relying upon, then it's a bad choice, scaring them. And if you should say, upon the Lord, our God, we rely upon, Jehovah, capital L-O-R-D, the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, Jehovah. Is he not whom Hezekiah removed his high places and his altars? Now, he removed his high places, it's probably talking about the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which he did remove all of these places that Solomon put in Jerusalem when he married all of these foreign wives, including the daughter of Pharaoh. and his altars. So Hezekiah did. He removed them. And he spoke to Judah and to Jerusalem, saying that, as Hezekiah said, in front of this altar do obeisance now, which he did. But now Hezekiah, Rabshakeh is saying, but mix in with my master, the Vasili Assyrion, and I will give to you 2,000 Ippon horses. Hippopotamus, a horse. Potomac is a river in Washington, D.C. It means river. Potomac River. If you are able to put riders upon them. So he's trying to bribe them. The people are probably sounding good. Probably want to eat them. And how are you able to turn to the face of the toparchs? These are the rulers. Toparchon is a transliteration, and you can add that to your English derivatives book. The ones relying upon the Egyptians for a horse and a rider, our servants. They're basically, we control them. So how are you going to rely upon those rulers? They've come over to us. And now, have we ascended without the Lord upon this place? So now, to wage war with it? So now he's going to lie. And he's going to, the Lord, sure, there is a Lord. We know who your Lord is. He's talked to me, and I know exactly what he says, and I have the truth, and you don't, basically is what he's saying here. And now have we ascended without the Lord upon this place to wage war with it? Polemics comes from that. And the Lord said to me, well, send upon this land and utterly destroy it. Okay, this is what Rabshakeh is telling the people there. This is what God has told me. And Eliakim ke Somnas ke Ioas said to him, to Rabshakeh, well, speak indeed to your servants, us, you're in Syriac, Syristi, which is that language they spoke. For we hear ourselves. They didn't want to hear the people hearing all this stuff coming from out of his mouth. And speak not to us in Eudaisti, in Jewish, or Hebrew, for why do you speak unto the ears of the Anthropon? So basically the language is called Eudaisti, Jewish, Judah-ish would probably be closer than Jewish. Eudaisti. Instead, there's nothing about Hebrew here in the Greek. For why do you speak unto the ears of the men standing upon the wall? We understand Syriac. And Rabshakeh said to them, is it to your master, or to you my master sent me to speak these words? Oh, no. Apostole, apostle, sent. Is it not to the men, anthropos, sitting upon the wall, that they should hear, so that they should eat their dung and drink their urine with you together? Hear all the bad things together with you. This is what it's all about. So you're going to listen to them because we're going to speak in Hebrew, Eudaisti. And Rabshakeh stood and yelled out with a great voice in Eudaisti and said, Acousate, here, hearken, acoustics, as a derivative to, indeed, the words of the great king, acousate thee, tus logus, tu vasileos, tu megalu, vasileos Assyrion. Tare legi, O Vasilefs, thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah deceive you. In no way shall he be able to rescue you. Well, that's true. He's not able to rescue. God is, though. And do not let Hezekiah say to you that your God shall rescue you. In no way shall this city be delivered into the hand of the king of the Assyrians. Well, this is their weak point. Rabshakeh knows it's the weak point that the God, they've defeated other places that the gods have told him to resist. So what does he says? Do not hearken, akuate, to Hezekiah. Thus says the Vasilefs Assyrion. If you want to be eulogithine, eulogy comes from that. If you want to be blessed, Come forth to me, and you shall each eat of his own grapevine and fig trees, and drink either hydro, the derivative, water from out of his own well. If you come forth, you're going to have all these things that you don't have right now. He didn't probably know that they had the cistern, or the pool of Siloam and the aqueduct. Until whenever I should come and should take you into a land as your land, a land of grain and wine and breads and vineyards. Can you imagine what the Jews were thinking? That they're going to be taken, and Jerusalem's going to be taken, and they're all going to be gone. It would have been horrible. And then he continues, let not Hezekiah deceive you, saying, well, God shall rescue us. Well, here's a good argument that he puts up. Have the gods of the nations each rescued his own place from out of the hand of the king of the Assyrians? No. Where is the God of Hamath? These are all up in Syria. And Arphath. And where is the Theos tis Polios Sepharuim, the God of the city of Shepharim, up in Syria? Have they been able to rescue Samaria from out of my hand? So he came down and took Samaria and all the people and moved them out. Which of the gods of all these nations is the one who rescued of his hand from out of my hand, that the Lord shall rescue Jerusalem from out of my hand? Okay? And they kept silent, the three men, and no one answered him a word by the assignment of the Vasileia, the king, saying, no one is to answer. And Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, the manager, entered, and Shebna, the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, to Hezekiah, having split their inner garments. They ripped them apart. They were so mad, and they announced to him, Hezekiah, the words of Rapsaku. So this is what happens, and in chapter 37 we'll continue the story here of what happens next. Hope you'll join us in chapter 37, and God bless.